Okay. Good afternoon to one and all. I, Sneha Pakle, Assistant Professor, Department of Information Technology, would like to welcome our Principal Madam, Dr. Mrs. J.M. Nair, Vice Principal and President, IISC, Dr. Mrs. Vijay Lakshmi, HOD, Mrs. Chalu Chopra, IT Department, and Deputy HOD, Mrs. Smita Jangle, IT Department. Speaker of the session, Mr. Devesh Rajadhyax, members of VESIT Institute Innovation Council and head of the department, faculty members, and all the students of VESIT for an e-session on problem solving and ideation. This session is organized by Department of IT, VESIT, in association with VESIT IISC Institution Innovation Council and VESIT Internal Quality Assurance Cell IQSC. Now, let me take this opportunity to briefly introduce our speaker for this session, Mr. Devesh Rajadhyax. He is founder and CEO of Cere Labs Private Limited and is working on artificial intelligence. At Labs, he has helped to create an cognitive platform for unstructured data processing. He has area of expertise in AI and AI in knowledge-based construction. He also has an understanding of array of technologies, especially emerging technologies, has consulted in many organizations which is based on the right use of technology. He has also written and spoken extensively on AI and is actively working on encouraging students to master them in the new way technologies. Then he is also the founder of Cere Labs Private Limited, as I said. Then he has also founded the Society Artificial Intelligence Mumbai to bring together people interested in AI in Mumbai. Now, Artificial Intelligence Mumbai aims also seeks to connect students, faculties, researchers, industry workers, and decision makers to stimulate the growth of AI industry and research in Mumbai. Then AIMS also conducts the regular seminars in various colleges to spread and create the awareness about AI. Then Mr. Devesh Rajadhyax has also spoken on many forums and panel discussions about artificial intelligence. He has written several articles on the same subject of artificial intelligence. Then he has also published various papers proposing the new methods for classification of AI systems. He has also spoken about the technology at many different events. Then he was also there for product development and innovation. He has a depth knowledge for use of technology in area of healthcare. He has presented various his innovations in his companies at the Cere Labs on many multiple different platforms related to AI. So let us now quickly ask Sir and invite Sir to start the session. So without any further delay, over to you, Sir. You can start the session.
Thank you so much, Sneha ma'am, for the introduction. And regards to all the respected faculty of VESIT IT department. And I enjoy excellent relationship with this department for a long time now. And I'm aware how the professors have always strived to introduce these emerging technologies. I have seen that from a close distance. So I'm very happy to speak on this forum. Also, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak on my favorite subject, which is innovation and problem solving. So a lot of my career has been spent in creating products and especially innovative products. So like Sneha ma'am said, earlier I was active in the field of healthcare informatics, and since the last 6-7 years, I've been focusing on artificial intelligence. But primarily, my role has been to drive the product development and especially innovation. So it really becomes a subject that I like to talk and especially share my experiences. So thanks again, and I would like to share a small presentation. So, so you are welcome to ask any questions while the presentation is going on. I would try and complete it in say 45-50 minutes so that we can have more time for questions. And audience can also raise their hand or put your boxes in questions in the chat box so that only problem is while I'm sharing the screen, I can't see the chat box very easily. So it would be helpful if you can, unmute and start asking the questions straight away. Okay, so let me share this, switch off the video, share the screen, and get into the presentation. Okay, I have started the slideshow. Can someone confirm if they see the full screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay. Right. So I think my introduction has been already given at length, so I'll just skip this. Okay. So this is a very, one second. Okay, I find this statement very, intriguing and very insightful. Okay, it says, "What is now proved was once only imagined." And how true is that? Just look around you, and each and everything, including the education that you are taking or the electronic medium that we are communicating through, or the transport that you are using, and in fact the food we are eating, that is the agriculture which brings us this food, everything is, we don't think about it twice now. We take all these things for granted, right? But at some point of time, these were imagined by someone. So, like, in fact, something as routine as agriculture, something that puts the food on our plate. If you go back in history enough, let's say we go back by 6,000 or 7,000 years, then there was no agriculture. Okay, we were either hunting or we were gathering, and agriculture was an innovation. It feels very strange to think of agriculture as innovation. But at some point of time, it was not there. And there were some innovative people in the world, who thought that probably they can, put the seed in a place of their choice and grow whatever they want. And then they don't have to go hunting or finding food and walking for miles. And so this is the case of every innovation. At some point of time, it is only imagination, and most probably it is being ridiculed by people or being challenged by people. But once it is implemented, once enough people use it, it is taken for granted. then people tend to forget that at some point of time it was only in somebody's mind. Okay, that's what we would. This is the phase that is the topic of our lecture today, when innovation hasn't happened yet, and it is still in somebody's mind. Okay, that is your mind or my mind. Okay. But before we do that, let's focus on why we think innovation is very important. Now, I realize that there is an innovation council in your institute, and that's a very good thing to know, because if this is the spirit is inculcated right from the student days, then that can be a very important thing for our community. And so it is that important, right? And we'll see why people consider innovation to be so important. Now, we would all accept that it has changed our world, and it continues to change our world from time to time. Okay, like I said, everything that we see around has been an innovation at some point of time. Let me take some specific examples. And recently I read a very nice book by Matt Ridley, How Innovation Works. And I have taken these two examples from that book. The first one is the steam engine. In fact, I've taken the first one from that book. And the second one, actually, I'm going to leave it to you. So think of the steam engine, which was invented around 200, 250 years ago. Before steam engine, going from one place to other was a very difficult thing. Okay, people obviously used to use horses and other such things, but there was a limit on how much you can go and how much you can carry, right? So people had a very different view of looking at things. Many people didn't even know what existed beyond 10, 20, 50 miles. But when steam engine was invented, and it was it's a fascinating story that you would probably like to read from the book. But after that long journey, when it was made available, and when it started being used for in the locomotive, that is the railways, then the whole world changed. Now it was possible to produce something in one place and consume it at far away. So things could be transported from one part of the country to another, and then even ships were fitted with steam engines, and so they could carry so much more. So this introduced a large-scale trade. Okay, it spurred industrial revolution, and what happened was that the entire humankind was actually lifted from poverty. Now when we see around, we see that certain number of people are poor. Which by poor, what we mean is that they don't have enough hygienic factors. They don't have food or shelter. Okay, so there's a certain number of people. Amount of percentage of people who are poor. But if we see 300 years back, then everybody was poor, except probably the kings and a few aristocrats. Everybody was poor, right? So much so that it would be interesting to note that the words lunch, dinner, and supper, which today we have assigned to different times. So lunch in the afternoon, and dinner a little earlier in the night, and supper a little later in the night. But these actually, all the words were being used for the same meal. And that was because there was a time when very, very few people can actually afford 2 or 3 meals in the day. Okay. So that is how the economic condition of the world was. And it was industrial revolution which is primarily responsible for creating the resources by which people are now have access to important life-saving things. But if you see the innovation of steam engine and similarly some other things, they had such a a big impact on our world. Similarly, electric bulb, and I'll leave it to you uh, for your thought. How electric bulb had changed the world. The fact that light can be brought on demand wherever you like has have a tremendous effect on the way we live. So that can be an exercise for you. That's the first reason. The second important reason is that there is a strong link between innovation and growth. I'm talking about, when I talk about growth, I'm talking about the economic growth of countries. Okay, you are aware that the growth of countries is not equal. In the world, there are some countries which, grow consistently over years and they become wealthy. Whereas there are nations which can't do that, and slowly they become, poor and then bankrupt nations, and people have a tough time. There is a difference of uh, growth in the nations of the world, right? And so uh, so innovation, in a big way, is responsible for deciding which nation will grow how much. We will see that in a moment. But before that, I want to tell you this important principle that if you don't innovate, which means that if you stay in one place, you might feel happy. But remember that when you stay at one place, you are actually falling behind. Okay, because the world is moving ahead. So anybody who stays put is actually at a big disadvantage. So let's now look at what I mean by when I say that innovation has a strong link with the growth of a country or a community or whatever unit, city unit you choose, but especially of countries. So how a nation grows? Okay, any unit, if you take how it grows, is by investing some of its income for growth. Okay, so suppose a nation earns, 10 crore, dollars. Okay? Then some of that is going to be used for consumption. Okay, but a nation puts aside, say, 10% or 5% for investing into growth, which means it buys some equipment or spends on uh, creating new things, whatever. Okay, so uh, and this investment into what we can collectively call as machinery, okay, creates the growth for the next year. So this year, if the if the so the mathematics comes something like this. This year, if the income was 10 crore, and the nation decides to keep aside 5%, okay, and that is 5% of 10 crores is 50 lakh, and that 50 lakh brings, suppose, an increase in income of 1 crore, then that means the nation has grown by 10%, right? Now, so the equation will work like this. Next year, the nation is going to put aside how much? 5% of 11 crores, which is 55 lakhs. And so the growth is going to be that much more, little bit more next year. So you can make this mathematics, put and make this work. But some of this money, the money that is kept aside, also goes into repairing what has been damaged, the previous machinery which has been damaged. Okay, this is how the model works. And so I don't want to get into the mathematics, but economists will tell you that when this model works over a certain number of years, the growth starts saturating. Okay, no nation can grow by the same amount year after year. That is because of the mathematics involved. So the curve that you see here, which is saturating after a certain number of years, is the natural growth curve of any nation. And if this happens, if the growth saturates, then what is going to happen is that the population is going to grow, demands are going to increase, and so actually the nation is going to get a little bit poorer every year. To compensate for this, innovation is required. So the innovation goes into which factor? It goes into, if you invest 5%, that is a certain amount, then how you can actually generate more. This is where innovation goes. See, all the innovations you see around actually make this effect work. Okay, they make a better, so for example, we had, a few years back, we had a green revolution. What was that about? How we can use the same land to produce more food. Okay, or white revolution, which means how we can produce more milk. These are some examples about the basic needs, but it will go everywhere. So innovation will basically work on how you can make the same investment work for more returns, and the innovation effect in turn nullifies the saturation effect of the underlying mathematics. Okay, and that's how nations keep on growing for a considerable period. Only if they invest in innovation, and people are making innovation work, right? So take example of our own country. It was our country, India, was a very innovative nation till Middle Ages, which in India started at around in the 14th century. If you take Europe, Middle Ages started after Rome fell, that is in the 5th century. In India, they started much later in the 14th century with the aggressors from outside. So we kind of shut our shop. We went into a more conservative mindset. Innovation languished. Okay, till then India has a very large share of the world GDP. Okay, the numbers are little unsure, but it is said that India had 28%, 30%, which you can imagine is a really large percentage. Okay, but after that, innovation slowed down, and we came to a situation where in 1952, just after we, with all the foreign aggressions that we went through, when we came out in 1952, we had 4% share of the 3.8 to be exact of the world's economy. Today it is around 7.5. So, so this is a good example of how innovation can work both ways. If you make it work, then you can grow, get better and better share of the world's income. But if you don't, then the growth can. So, remember that when we talk about innovation, we are not only talking about personal benefit here. We are talking about the benefit of the entire community. Okay. The second side of innovation is problem solving. Okay. Innovation is problem solving. Problem solving is not necessarily always for innovation. Okay, problem solving is a much bigger discipline, but any innovation has to involve problem solving. Okay, so I say that the process of innovation is the process of problem solving, only with only one addition, that you have to choose the problem correctly, and we'll get into that. Okay. And this is a subject that should be very close to our heart as engineers, because if there is one thing that engineers are, then they are problem solvers, right? In fact, the word engineer and its original, Latin, French version, they mean that someone who solves a problem in a way that nobody else can. Okay, so our profession itself has been based on the fact that we are able to supply very innovative solutions to problems. Okay, so with that in our mind, let us get into. So these are now parallel. When I talk about the innovation cycle, I am also talking about the cycle of problem solving, with, as I said, one addition that you have to remember, that for innovation, you have to choose your problem carefully. Okay. you have to choose a problem which is so because imagine that you have solved a problem, but nobody wanted that solution. Nobody had that problem. Then we can't call that as an innovation. Okay, number one. Number two, for innovation, it is not enough that the problem is solved, but it also has to be implemented and improved. Okay, if I give a theoretical solution to some problem, it can be called as problem solving, but it cannot be called as innovation. Because for innovation, it is necessary that it actually works, people use it, and it is certified by a certain number of people. So with these little differentiations in mind, okay, we will discuss the innovation cycle, which is also to a large extent a problem solution cycle. Okay, so there are 3 steps, and we are in the rest of the time we are basically going to focus on these 3 steps of innovation cycle: problem definition, search for solution, and solution enhancement. I think this is pretty common sense, but what is left to discuss is only the details, which we'll now get into. Okay, now the biggest hurdle, remember, in problem definition is that as human beings, we have a tendency to get into solution as fast as possible, right? And as students, you might have experienced this a lot. And I was a student once, and we all have this tendency to get into the solution as early as possible. Why? Because ultimately we have to solve the examination question paper, right? So the moment the question is put to us, what do we do first? We start we start giving solution as early as possible. And this habit remains with us throughout. However, for the most important thing in problem solving, okay, is that don't worry about the solution. Okay, it will come much later. Okay, the first enough time has to be spent on understanding the problem itself. Okay, and understanding the problem is not always easy, because how do the problems come to us? They come from some real life situation, right? A customer, or your socio-economic problems. Now, these problems are not always framed properly. Okay, you might think that I'll give you an interesting example. Okay, of so there is this book by Stephen Johnson. He was a quite famous researcher in the field of complex systems. The book is, I think, Where Innovation Comes From. Okay, and this example is about Darwin. Okay, Darwin, we all know, is the creator of the evolution, natural selection theory, and we all know about his trip on the ship called Beagle, and his visit to Galapagos Island and all. So I think we have all heard of this. But and we know that he framed his, at least he created the data, he collected the data necessary for the evolution theory during that trip. But there are other things that he did there which are probably not that well known. One of the thing is that he thought about a problem where the problem definition itself was a challenge. The problem was something like this: when so on his in his ship journey, the sea journey, he saw many small islands which are called as the atolls. Okay, which means it's a very small, maybe a few meters in diameter. So very small islands. They are called atolls. Okay, so there are many of these in the high seas. Now, see the importance of problem definition. Okay, what is the problem that Darwin framed? The problem was like this: if these are mountains, okay, then why are they exactly at the sea level? Okay, the height should be random, which means some of the mountains should be, less shorter than the sea level, so we should not see them. Some should be taller, so they should actually come above the sea level, and they should appear like small mountains in the sea. Why is it that the level is exactly at the sea level, so that they look like islands? Okay, you get this? So how difficult it is to identify the problem in this situation. Okay, the solution is equally ingenious, I agree, but the solution is something like this: that these atolls are actually created by living beings. So the mountains are there, but they get eroded because of the wind and everything. But once they start going below the sea level, then these corals and other organisms, they actually keep on producing material to keep them forever at the sea level. So this is a very ingenious solution given, but according to me, the problem definition itself is very striking. Okay, and even in the case of the theory of natural selection, Darwin himself has said that in retrospect, it was more important to define the problem than its solution. Okay, this is the magic of problem definition. If you frame that in the correct way, solution many times is not that hard to find. Okay, and to do that, if the problem is complex, then you have to sometimes break down the problem. Okay, do it to so when you break a problem down, then you find that what you thought was very difficult actually is made up of many simple problems, and only few of them are really tough, and then you can focus your energy on that tough thing. So suppose you are now suppose you are in your final year, and you are supposed to you are given a problem statement for your final year project, and it sounds too tough. Then probably you would like to break that down. You will see that most of those systems are such that you can make them, and probably there is one part where you have to build a model, or you have to really employ a new technology, blockchain or something. Only some part will be like that. But if you don't break down, then the entire problem will sound like hard problem. Okay. Rephrasing the problem is also a very important technique. Okay, I'll give you another example here. So, but before that, just let me do a time check. Okay, it's 5:10 and 20 minutes more, and I have to cover two more topics. So I think it seems to be okay. So I can go ahead and give you the solution, the example. So you are all aware of what GPS is, right? GPS is that in your map, there is a small blue dot which can tell you where you are, location. Okay, and now because of that dot, actually you are never lost. Wherever you are, if you get some GPS, then you cannot lose your way, right? So it's a very big innovation. You will agree. It has changed the world, changed the life for us. The GPS combined with maps is, in fact, the book itself is never lost again, right? The book which describes this, written by the founder of that company. So, but I want to talk about not about the maps, but about the GPS. So it happened something like this. When the first satellite, Sputnik, was launched by Russia, Soviet Russia that time, it evoked strong reactions in the US. Okay, because they felt bad that Russia launched satellite before them. Okay, and a lot of researchers, scientists, they started tracking this. Now, satellite used to transmit a small beep after a certain interval. Okay, and there was a researcher, a scientist, who created a small radio-like equipment to catch this signal, and print or log something. Okay. And then slowly, what it did was from the the time interval, okay, and other things. He started recording how far the satellite is or where it is, because he knew the orbit. Okay, and he went and showed it this discovery or his formulation to his superior. I forgot the names of both the superior and the scientist, but they are both well known. What the superior said is a classic example of rephrasing the problem. Okay, he said that given the satellite beep, you are able to predict its location. But if I give you the satellite location, will you be able to find my location? Okay, and this is the formulation which gave rise to the invention of GPS. Now, what we do is we send many satellites. They actually send a signal, and your phone or any other GPS device takes this. Now, there are many satellites because they need more accuracy, and they use a technique called triangulation. They know the location of the satellite, right? And from that they can, but see that how important it was to rephrase. Normally we assume that our location is known and some other location needs to be found, but to think that there are instances when our location is unknown and it can be valuable to find that location is a great example of rephrasing the problem. So this is another tool in our kit. Okay, now we come to the second part, which actually is the one that we think is all important. Search for solution. This is where we actually come up with solution. Okay. Now again, this is a little different than what we would normally imagine. So if by common sense, if you are asked to search for solution, then you are going to go very hard at finding a solution, right? You are going to take pen, pencil, iPad, or whatever, and you are just get after solving that problem. Okay. But experience says that this is not what you are supposed to do. Okay, solution is supposed to form itself. Okay, our mind has got certain capacity to connect things. Okay, and come up with the solution itself. What we need to do is to provide input to our mind. Okay, our job, our brain has has enough horsepower to do this stuff. What we are supposed to do is provide the fodder. And what are these inputs that your mind can use? Okay, so that's what we have to discuss here. Okay, for example, the first input is what we call as metaphors. Now, presented with a problem, we have to give metaphors to the process. This is like, for example, okay, this is like a magnet and iron. This is like fire and so on. So these are metaphors, right? So we have to find what are the other things which are like what you are trying to think. Okay, one example comes to my mind where when again I don't remember the names, but you can easily search for this. Okay, the inventor of some footwear, shoes, okay, was thinking of a solution of how to build some user friendly replacement of the shoelace. Okay, shoelaces are kind of clumsy, right? So he was in his cabin in a forest, and one day he had gone on a trail with his dog, and when he came back, he saw that his dog has in the dog's hair some seeds have got stuck. You have all seen these seeds. they have little small, thorn-like things, okay, or hair-like things, and so they get stuck to even your clothes, right? I'm sure you have seen this. And so that gave him the idea that something like this can be made when both sides have hair-like structures, and that is how Velcro was born. Okay, so this is the ability to, create meta. So this is like this kind of a thing, and something similar is solutions from other field. Okay, there is a famous example of how printing press was born. Okay, and so the earlier I'm talking about now, printing press is a very different thing. But the earliest printing press was that there were two, parts to it. On one, you put the type, which is the letters, inverted letters in metal print. On the other, you put the paper, and then you run the ink roller on the type, and then put the type to the paper. Okay. So this is the printing press that Gutenberg invented, which changed world forever. Before that, people, if you want books, then people used to actually sit and copy manually. And so obviously there was a big limitation on the number of books that the world can produce. Right? Today, I read that there are some 130 million books, different book titles are there in the world. So such a big this is such a big industry, and we are all so much dependent on the books. No longer now because of the digital thing, but so far it was the biggest medium of knowledge that we had. To invent the print press, Gutenberg actually took the idea from wine press. So where wine press is, the wine bottles have corks, right? So the bottle is placed on one plank, the cork on another, and then the plank actually are brought together. So so from the wine press, it didn't work exactly, but many times taking solutions from another field. So when you are faced with a problem, then find something similar what other people are doing. So if you are from software, see what people in manufacturing or in chemical industry are there. They have something similar, not exactly similar, but something that can be compared. Okay. Another source of such inputs are solutions which have already failed. Okay, it is possible that some solution failed a few years back because of other reasons, but today they can be successful because now, for example, the my own field, AI, where neural networks is something that was considered to be a failure in the late 80s. Okay, but because they couldn't match the performance of even simple other techniques like SVM and all. But when because other things were invented, back propagation and all that, but mainly when machines became powerful, large amount of data became available. That is what brought deep learning again back into the scene, right? So sometimes the failed solutions of earlier time can be your inspiration. They can give you ideas of what can be done today. And again, something similar is repurposing, which is very common in the medical field, where a drug, you must have heard in the early phase of our COVID pandemic, a drug which was actually used for, orthopedic, was repurposed for, I forgot the name of the drug. You can easily search for it. Was actually used as the first line of treatment for the, healthcare workers. So, an example of repurposing. And then, creativity, after all, is connecting things. I think Steve Jobs said that, but maybe I got that wrong. So, there is no magic in creativity. Okay, you can't create anything from scratch. Things are already there, but basically the magic lies in how you connect them. Okay, and our mind is extremely good at connecting things. You may be under estimating our power of connecting. If you have enough input, rather than searching hard for solution, if you focus on input, and leave it to your mind to connect, then you will be. Edison used to do this a lot. What he used to do was he used to create a lot of input and then rest in his chair, easy chair, and he used to have a metal ball connected to a string in his lap. So as he drifted into sleep, the ball used to roll and fall on the floor, and obviously that used to create some noise. So he used to wake up, and he has experienced many times that during that moment, when he wakes up, he found some ingenious solutions. May or may not happen in your or mine case. Most probably, we are going to sleep for a longer time, but worth trying, right? Okay. So with that, we come to the last part of our innovation cycle, which is solution enhancement. Many times, the solution that you find is actually inadequate. It is a right solution, but cannot be used as it is. Okay? It is important to complete the solution, which means you have to that core of the solution is there. For example, you might have invented an algorithm for solving something, but then it has to be put into because many of you I think are computer students, so you have to actually put it into the right framework. You have to build the UI and do all this, integrate with other systems. All these things are called completing the solution. Without that, many times a good idea is actually wasted. Okay. Another important thing is to improve the performance. Okay, and there is this story of how microwave was invented, where they were working with radar. Okay, and the cup of coffee was by mistake was kept there, and the water boiled, and it's a famous story. It makes very interesting reading, but that's not my point. The point is, when the microwave was invented, it was big. It was the size of a room. Okay, so because to create that much radiation and heat, it took a much larger, coil and all that. But obviously, such a thing cannot be used in home, and it didn't have many industrial applications. Only when they worked on it and brought it to a size which can be accommodated into a kitchen, then microwave became a popular equipment. Okay, so this similarly cost and size. So mobile phone is not new. Motorola invented the mobile phone in 1971. Okay, but the mobile phone was that it was hardly mobile. It was very big. Okay, and it could the battery lasted only for a few minutes and all that. So it took a long time for the researchers to keep working on it, bring it to us, the right size and cost. Where now, as you know, the world has billions of mobile phones in use. So these things are have to be done after the main invention has been made, the innovation has been made. Also important is aesthetics, how nice it looks, how easy it is to use. For example, something like iPod, and you must have read about this or seen videos how the innovation of a single round control, which was doing everything. The original iPod had only one control, which is just a round, a circle kind of fit, where you can increase the volume and change everything. Correct. So these kind of things improve the experience and make the innovation work for people at large. This is all part of solution enhancement. Many times this happens over a period of many years. A lot of people get involved, and that's how the innovation spreads. Okay, so we are. This is the last slide. And Alan Kay is actually a famous computer scientist, a fellow who did a lot of innovation in the computer industry. Currently, a distinguished fellow in Apple. Okay, and his quote is very famous. The best way to predict the future is to invent it. Right. So you work on something that is going to be the future tomorrow. That's what Kay wants to say. And with that, I come to the end of my lecture. Now I would welcome any questions from the audience.
If anyone is having any questions, then you can go ahead.
Hello, I couldn't hear.
Anyone having any questions?
Sir, I would like to ask one question. Sir, how do you evaluate your idea? At what stage can you have the evaluation being done?
Okay, that's a very good question. Especially, in if you want to turn this idea into a business, okay, then evaluation is sometimes more important than the idea, because ideas have this characteristic that they take over your mind. Okay, whenever you come up with an idea, you think that's the best idea in the world. Okay, and it is impossible for the inventor to think anything against the idea. So it is necessary that a right evaluation framework is used before that idea is commercialized. So there are a lot of criteria which can be applied to the most important of which is who is the user. Okay, who is the beneficiary of that idea, and then what is the opinion of that user about the idea. Okay, that's the most important thing. So techniques such as design thinking uh, have been created for this, where you create a small prototype or something that can communicate your idea well, and then you interview the users. How you can empathize with their point of view, and all these techniques are well articulated in that methodology. So you should use such frameworks. There is a framework of uniqueness versus value. That's also, so is your idea unique versus how much value does it create. Okay, is a good framework to evaluate. Or value against ease of use. I'm sorry, value against ease of making. So you might have a very valuable idea, but it may be extremely difficult to implement. So that's another thing that you need to think about. And also, one important criteria that I apply is called the adjacent possible. Okay, is that idea near from what already exists, or you have to? It is very different or far away from what you already have. However good the idea is, if it is not adjacent possible, then it will be very difficult for it to come into practice. So these are some of the things, and there are many more. But the point is, evaluation is sometimes more important than the idea itself.
Good evening, sir. I have a question related to the same thing, something similar, but the question that comes to my mind is, how do you identify whether the problem is actually a problem or it is a symptom which indicates a problem elsewhere?
Exactly. So that's very relevant because,
In
as I
short,
said,
how do I identify whether the problem is a problem or it is a symptom?
yeah. So in a formal manner, what we can say that, is it a primary problem or is it secondary problem? This is a primary secondary analysis, which means that you have got a problem, but the core problem may be something else. So problem analysis stage has to take this into account. So you should not find a solution, to a problem which is not the root problem, because
Okay.
you might solve it, but then it will appear as something else, right? It will be like a what balloon filled with water, which if you press at one point, one place, then it will bulge at other. So I think this is all part of problem analysis, and that's why innovator has to spend a long time in problem analysis, first, before jumping into finding the solution. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions left?
Students may ask some questions there, because there are many students today.
I guess there are no questions, and we can proceed. Sneha, please.
Okay. Thank you so much, sir, for motivating, enlightening, and sharing with us that how innovation can change the world and how much innovation is necessary for our growth. Then I really, really hope that this session on problem solving and ideation has benefited and helped our students who have gathered here. So I thank you everyone for your active participation, and also a very thank you to sir for sparing his time with us and giving us such an interactive session. Now, before concluding the session, I would like to give vote of thanks on this session of problem solving and ideation organized by Department of IT in association with VESIT, Institution Innovation Council, and Internal Quality Assurance Cell. So I would first like to thank our managing trustee, Shri B.L. Bulani sir, for his constant support and guidance. Then, on the behalf of IIC team and IT department, I would like to thank the speaker of the day, that is Mr. Devesh Rajadhyax, the founder and CEO of Cere Labs Private Limited, for taking out his time and giving us a wonderful session on how innovation can exactly change our life and lightening his knowledge on this particular session. Also, I would like to thank our principal madam, Dr. Mrs. J.M. Nair, Vice Principal Madam, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi, HOD Ma'am, Dr. Mrs. Shalu Chopra, and IIC team, and all other committee members. I would also like to thank all the faculties and students for being present here, for making this event a great success. So thank you one and all to be present in the event and making this event a great success. So everyone have a great evening ahead. Also, I will share a link in the chat section, so you can fill the feedback forms, and then we can have a great evening ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Please fill the feedback form. The link is pasted in the chat box.